Good morning, friends and neighbors. Hope you're enjoying the day or the time. Happy Friday. It's hard to compete in the news cycles and what I guess social media, which includes our news today, and the topics they discuss. So, hence some hesitancy. The people that should be talking about this aren't. Anyway, what's going on? Subtly, very subtly, Biden has told the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency, that rules over the environmental laws of this nation, the United States, not these states. It's called the United States because pollution has the same harm. Pollution doesn't know boundaries. It doesn't know state limits. It doesn't know politics other than it is politics. So very subtly, the EPA has been issuing citations, warnings to major chemical industry facilities across the nation. And some of them have been paying it because they got caught. Because they got caught. So the name of this channel, Measured Constraints, is something that abounds in life. My constraints in engineering positions were the rules around being an engineer, whether it was a chemical engineer, electrical, powerhouse, systems and controls, computer systems. These had boundaries and constraints is what you could do. There were hardware constraints, what the hardware, software constraints, what the software can do. Human constraints, how that machine, the robot, was going to interact with the people around it. So these constraints are very big and real. And what happens is the EPA has been forced by constraints into making these guidelines for states to follow, hoping that these rules would be followed by the states and enforced by the states. And they place the onus of enforcement on a state that gains millions or billions of dollars in revenue, hundreds or thousands of jobs into that state. Would the state have a reason for bias in its analysis of chemical pollutants? I think so, given the politics you see on television, on the YouTubes, wherever you look. So you can go find these articles, usually local articles, about the EPA enforcing environmental standards. This was the problem the city and the state of Flint and the state of Michigan had with regulating drinking water rules. Were these guidelines, were these recommendations, or were these hard rules you have to follow by? And the reason for the slack. The slack in lead pipes is there's so much of it still existing today, buried infrastructure from decades, from generations ago, that has lead. There's other contributors to the lead issue, but that's a big one for drinking water in older cities. So there's remediation things you can do. It's expensive, it costs money, it takes people, it takes workers. It takes workers being paid enough, understanding enough to know what they're doing and do it well. So the Flint crisis was a manufactured crisis because of politics about union and pay and who's in charge of what, and thinking that they can do things cheaper without looking at the extended cost, the results of their actions. This is called the use of science and the methodologies of engineering in order to understand how to best do things. So the EPA enforcing rules and regulations. This is so tricky. It is so convoluted. It's not convoluted, it's complicated on how you go about taking a sample. Just the sample itself has to have some rules around the taking of. Then where does the sample go? And what are the analysis rules for the sample? This is of interest to me because this was a part of my career. For about 5 years, I was a instrument specialist working with precise measurement equipment, including gas analyzers and any number of devices I could list through. The instruments I worked with, the labs I went into, did isotopic analysis, elemental analysis of samples. Some from oil wells, some from swamps in Louisiana, some for environmental studies. So one of the things I went looking for is dioxins. Dioxins. This comes up in those little articles, these little local things. It is a national issue. These dioxins, how they're created, where they're created. A train wreck can create dioxins. So the question for me was, knowing these things, having a good idea about it, but there was a reminder because I was focusing on another pollutant caused by fires from a train wreck when the dioxin thing came up. So I said, how do you test for dioxins? Know what you find. So the EPA very subtly is working because it has to. There was a reason it was formed. The industry's response might be to shut down whole industries and move them overseas because you don't know the difference. Some people want to argue about whether it's a globe or not and what the term globalism means. And this is where we live. So the EPA is getting a thumbs up from me. And every person that goes to a job during the day, bless you. Peace is out.